Welcome to Stu Structures. We're here to show you hopefully a new way to make trees for your model railroad, so stay tuned. So welcome back to Stu Structures and welcome to my new subscribers. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button down there and the bell so you'll be notified when I have new material that comes out. And I hope this is new material to everybody. I've never seen this done in the model railroad world. I work in the nursery industry and I look at plants all the time and look for natural things that I can use for scenery materials on my model railroad. And a couple of years ago I found this and I've been playing with it now for a couple of years and I like it, and it really gives some realistic looking trees. So there's a plant out there that is a perennial, which means it dies to the ground every year and comes back and reblooms the next year. It's a perennial plant. And it has a flower on it that mimics natural trees. And you know, I've been playing this for a couple of years and it really holds its structure really well. Now there's some things that I do to, make that even stronger. But I really like the process of putting these trees together, and you don't need extra foliage to add to them or anything. Everything is right there on the flower after you dry it, other than paint. And basically you paint them and you add them on your model railroad. So, go out and buy a bunch of these this spring and put them in your garden and collect the flowers off of them this fall and start making some free trees. Let's just jump into this and I'll show you the process and what I'm talking about here. So to begin with, what is Astilbes? Like I said, they are perennials. This is one just starting really to open its flowers on the bottom. And I guess you could pick these at any stage and dry them to get the kind of look that you want to. I mean, most of them have, different colors available as far as the blooms, but when they dry, they're all basically a shade of brown. Now here's one that's just, all its blooms are open from top to bottom. You can see how thick and full they are, and, if this was, green, they would look like little miniature trees at this point in time. And I've not tried it, but I believe you could probably, groom these as they're in flower and kind of shape them to some degree so that when you pick them later on, they would already have a type of a shape that you could deal with. I mean, here's another one that's bright red. They also have slightly different foliages, but the foliage isn't our concern. But if you wanted, different types of foliage to mix in with your garden, you can also look at that aspect of the flower too. Now these do bloom in full sun, but they'll take shade, a small amount of shade, and the hotter the area that you live in, the less of the sun that they'll like. Now once they're dried at the end of the year, you could pick these and hang them to dry. I just got all these out of a client's garden that I was working on after the bloom time. And you can see here how it dries, and this is about 2 years old, and it really holds all this, dead foliage from the flowers on there really good in the seed pods. It really, you can run your hand over it and you might lose a few little pieces of it, but basically it stays pretty intact. And we're going to do something, that'll make it even, a little more intact. I mean, you can see this one and some of them, they have a little bit of cling-ons to them and broken pieces still hanging on to them. They need to be cleaned up a little bit and then worked with. But and these as a whole could even be used as, O scale. But you could take each of these individual pieces off and use them for, smaller scales, even clear down to N scale if you wanted to, and just break them down to whatever size you really want to use on your layout. And some of them are more narrow than others. This is a little more narrow, not as fat as the other one was. This one is less than a year old from last year's growth. And you can see that it really is a nice tree. If it were needles, it'd make a wonderful pine tree. But in any case, once this is painted and dealt with, it would make a nice addition to any trees on your layout. Here are some others that, they were more in a shaded spot, so the flowers didn't form as well, but this gives me the hint that maybe you could groom these as they're growing as flowers and try to get some shapes that are more to your liking for what you want to use them for. So once I've got all that glue, I bring it in and let all these dry, and there's not much falling off of them at this point. I think the glue actually did help to some degree, so I'm glad I went ahead and did that. Now, one thing I did before I added glue to these was I put these spreaders in between some of the branches because they were all kind of, squished in together. So I just pushed them out a little bit and put these kind of spreaders in there the way natural nurseries do in branches to train them outright, thinking that, okay, well, when I add the glue onto this, maybe this will help them stay spread out. And I did this to 3 trees just, to experiment. I've never done this before, and I like playing with things to see if I can make things work. So, I don't know. I tried it on 3 and didn't use it on the others. And the glue mixture I'm going to make, I have some of this old Elmer's glue, and I'm just going to take this empty spray bottle that I have and put mostly water in it and add a bunch of glue to it and shake it up. And once I do that, I take it outside and I'm going to go ahead and get a real fine spray on this. At first I started off with this heavy spray, and I'm going to turn it down to more of a spray than a spout type of a thing. But anyway, I just put a real strong coat on all these. And I think this will help keep any of the extra, dry, brittle stuff from falling off these in the long run, is what I'm hoping. And I'm showing going through the process once here, but I actually let it dry, and I did this 3 separate times. And I think that, it soaked in really good into the flower. So once I bring these in here, there's really no debris falling off of them or anything like that. So, it's just my assumption that this was a beneficial process to keeping these long lasting. Now the next step in putting these together is to put paint on the foliage part of these. And I just take some water in a little cup and put a bunch of green paint in there and stir it up really good. And then I'm going to start applying this to all the branches. Well, not the branches itself. When I started putting this on the tree, what happened was that I got this initial batch a little too wet. And it actually did, run down the trunks a little bit. And, I don't want to have to repaint the trunks on these. I did come prior to doing this painting step, I did take some gray paint and just kind of paint the whole thing and the main stems just to try to get the bark color that I wanted on the main stems. But then when I put this on too wet, it ran down some of those trunks. So I'm going to have to go in there and manually, tone down some of the green on some of the trunks, which is not what I really wanted to do. So then I came back and just added more paint to the batch here. And when I started coming through and, it didn't run down the trunks anymore, which was what I was looking for. And, it's kind of thick, but, you got to be careful when you're putting this on not to put your brush against the trunks as well. But basically, it takes a lot of time to go down through the tree. But once you do that, it gives you really a nice looking tree. And this just kind of gives you, after the first coat, what it looks like. And trees have various different greens in them. Not every tree is not the same exact green. And, the newest growth on the branches is normally a lighter, either yellow or lighter green on the brand new leaves versus the old leaves. So I mixed a little bit lighter version of it and just coming back and touching up some of these green branches with a little bit of a lighter color on some of them to make them look like there's some new growth and some old growth. And I just go to, up the whole stem just highlighting. And I guess the best thing to do with this would be to just highlight the top edges and the outward ends of all the branches versus the whole branches. But I like the look that I got from doing this. I just went through the whole thing and just put highlights in the whole thing. And depending on how old or how, starting to die the tree may be, you can leave some of the inner leaves brown. And this might lead you to believe that maybe we're coming into a fall season if you did that, and just give you some variations in the foliage as well. And you can vary the greens on every tree. Do a few in one color, then mix up your mix and do it a little darker, add some blue green or some lime green, or changing the colors. And basically it gives you different looks of trees. But once I do that highlight on there and on top of the darker color, this is basically what it looks like at this point. And I'm really liking this as a tree. The growth habit of it is more like a pine, but this one is not so much. It's more of a rounded type of a tree. And like I said, I think you could probably groom these some as they're in the flowering stage and actually get some shapes that are more towards what you would want for your model railroad. But I like the looks of these, in a forested area or even standing on their own. I think they'd be just, a really, really good looking tree. And these are, some of them are 10, 12 inches long. But you can come back through and break all the little branchlets off and make smaller trees, which would be great for N scale or smaller trees in HO scale or baby trees in 027. But you could also make ornamental trees for yards or even break them off really small and, form some bushes or something out of these if you wanted to. It's just a very versatile plant, actually. So there you have a new process for making trees. Like I said, I've never seen anybody do this out there. If there has been, I apologize. I don't mean to rip somebody off, but I think everybody needs to see this to be able to make some free trees. Trees out there are expensive in the model railroad world. I mean, I make mine. I don't buy them pre-made, but the materials to make some of them, it's not a cheap process. And if you can come up with any type of a tree that can be made with next to nothing for cost other than time involved in making them, to me, it's a win-win situation. And this is a plant. Most people have gardens, or if you don't have gardens, buy some from a friend that does have a garden and collect the blooms after they've dried on the plants in the fall and make some trees. Winter time is the time that most people get a lot of their model railroading in. And if you're collecting these in the fall, that gives you something to do and add to your list of things to do for the winter time. But they do make really nice looking realistic trees. So Astilbe is something to add to your plant list for your garden for next year. And go out there and try this and see how it works for you. Let me know later on. Come back to the video or leave comments in another one of my videos and tell me what you think of it. I really think it's an innovative way to make more trees. So anyway, thank you for coming back and sharing this time with me. I hope this helps you out there to make more trees for your model railroad. And it's another way of scratch building, I guess. It's all good. Scratch build something, even if it's trees. Happy model railroading.